revealed how a homeless boy's touching wisdom transformatively helped a millionaire in distress. The rain fell hard on downtown Chicago, the kind of downpour that made streets glisten like silver. A soft glow illuminated the sidewalk beneath the harsh light of a bus shelter. There, huddled against the cold, was Alex, a 12-year-old boy with a tattered backpack at his side. His cheeks were pale, almost translucent, and even though his clothes were worn and frayed, the warmth of his smile radiated through the storm. He clutched a tiny, battered notebook, pages dog-eared from countless entries of wisdom handed down from his grandmother. True wealth isn't what you have, but what you can give. It said, a simple mantra that had become Alex's guiding light in the tough world he navigated daily. Just a few steps away, Tom Henderson wandered through the rain, a sharp contrast to the colorful chaos around him. Once a successful businessman, his suit was now drenched, clinging uncomfortably to his skin, and every glossy storefront he passed reminded him of the life that had slipped through his fingers. Fragile shards of wasted opportunity crowded his mind as he glanced at Alex. Reflexively, he reached for a few crumpled bills in his pocket, but as he approached, something stopped him. It was the boy's gaze, calm and inviting, brimming with understanding that went beyond mere survival. Here, Tom began, unsure if he wanted to give or receive. Instead of the expected thank you, Alex met his eyes and replied, "You look sad, mister. My grandma said deep down, true wealth isn't about what you keep. It's about what you share." Those words hit Tom like a burst of lightning against a pitch-black sky. It was as if Alex had peeled back the layers of his heart and shown him the truth he had so desperately hidden from. Instead of walking away, Tom sat on the cold concrete beside him, the rain soaking through both of their clothes. In moments like this, amid the chaos, something beautiful blossomed. A bond began to form, not based on pity or expectation, but on the shared struggles of humanity. At that moment, Tom felt lighter. The storm felt less ominous, his worries semolina in the wind. As the rain continued to pour and thunder rumbled in the distance, they shared laughter and stories, each meeting unearthing layers of untold dreams and fears. Little by little, the walls built around Tom's heart began to crumble, exposing a need for connection he'd long neglected. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Days turned into weeks, and every rain-soaked evening drew Tom back to Alex. Stories of hardship soon flourished into tales of hope. Alex revealed snippets of his childhood's silly moments filled with laughter and resilience against the rough backdrop of life on the streets. Yet, in each tale, there was warmth, a reminder that joy can be found even in the darkest times. But as Tom stood on the edge of opportunity, with a high-paying job beckoning him like a siren song, doubt clouded his vision. Was a paycheck worth the warmth in his heart? Torn between a fleeting sense of security and bonding with a boy who had reignited lights long buried, Tom faced his greatest dilemma. Just when clarity seemed to dawn, the skies grew darker, not just with storm clouds overhead, but with a looming crisis that threatened not only his future but Alex's as well. As the first thunderclap cracked loudly above, so too did the tension within him. Would he choose a chance at wealthy restoration or risk everything for the very spirit Alex embodied? What does it truly mean to be wealthy? The storm echoed the weight of his indecision, leaving readers clutching their breath, eager for what would come next. The storm raged on, rain splattering down like tiny daggers against the pavement. For Tom, it felt as if the heavens themselves were testing his resolve. He cast a glance toward Alex, who sat cross-legged, gazing up into the skies as if waiting for answers. "What will happen to you if I take that job?" Tom asked, barely above a whisper. The weight of his question hung heavily in the air, mingling with the raindrops. Alex turned his head, his expression a mixture of curiosity and compassion. "I don't know," he replied, "but I promise I'll be okay. Sometimes you just gotta believe that the rain will bring a rainbow. That's what my grandma used to say." His eyes sparkled with the kind of innocence that could pierce the hardest heart. Guilt clawed at Tom's insides. He thought about the job offer, the shiny car waiting for him in a sleek parking garage, the shiny suits and fancy lunches that promised to fill the void he'd been, albeit unsuccessfully, trying to ignore. Yet Alex's words tickled his thoughts. What if the real rain was the opportunity to connect, to give back? For the first time, the job felt like a chain trying to bind him to a life he'd fought so hard to escape. His heart raced as he grappled with the revelation wealth wasn't in the bank, but in the connections forged. "What if I chose to be your friend instead of a millionaire?" Tom blurted out, the words tumbling from his lips before he could catch them. Alex's face lit up, but it also dawned on him that the weight of that friendship might be bigger than either of them realized. "We could share stories like the ones I tell, or we could work together to help others, maybe even those who are in situations like me." Alex's eyes widened with hope, his imagination soaring amidst the pitter-patter of the rain. Tom chuckled softly, touched by the pure enthusiasm radiating from the boy. "You'd really want that? To help others instead of running off into your own life?" He couldn't believe how much Alex's spirit was shifting the narrative of his own existence. "Of course, there are so many people out there who feel lost. If we can help just one person, wouldn't that be something? I can be rich in heart." Tom felt his heart swell. It reminded him of the days when dreams came easy and laughter flowed easily, echoing with hope. Could he trade success for significance? Could an unkempt boy unlock the door to a happiness he thought long gone? The storm began to suppress its fury, the rain softening into a light drizzle. But in that moment of clarity, the clouds above both metaphorically and literally parted just a little. Tom saw a glimpse of something outside themselves, a chance to create a ripple. "I don't have anything to share." Alex's voice trailed off, a sense of defeat creeping back in. Alex smiled. "Even the smallest drop makes a ripple. That's what our words do. Sharing them can change someone's world. Let us do this. We can inspire, reach out, you'll see." Inspired by the boy's unwavering spirit, Tom made a choice. He put his hand on Alex's shoulder, and just for a moment, the weight of the world felt lighter. But their bond was about to be tested in unimaginable ways as shadows loomed over their heads. "Promise me," Tom said, looking deep into Alex's bright eyes. "Promise me you'll hold on no matter what happens next." "I promise," Alex assured him. But both boys felt an unsettling breeze brush against them, a foreshadowing of trouble lurking on the horizon, ready to strike at the core of their newfound friendship. As they sat together at that bus shelter, Tom held his breath, knowing that the choice had been made, but the path forward was uncertain. What would they face? Would their bond survive the coming storm? The storm might have eased, but the thunder of fate was just beginning to echo. The minutes trudged by, each one laden with uncertainty. As the drizzle settled into a thin mist, Tom felt his heart beat a rhythm of hope and anxiety. He looked at Alex, who still seemed marvelously unbothered by the world's chaos. It was as if the storm had no power over him, but Tom felt the weight press heavily on his chest. "Hey, wanna walk?" Tom broke the silence, nudging Alex gently. The boy nodded and sprang to his feet with the kind of energy that only young souls possess, unfazed by the gray clouds. They stepped out from the shelter, and Tom led the way, the pavement slick beneath his shoes. They walked side by side, splashing through puddles, laughs punctuating their shared silence. The simple act of moving felt therapeutic, as if every step released a bit of Tom's tension. "Where do you want to go?" Tom asked, glancing down at Alex, whose face was now adorned with a playful grin. "To where hope shines," Alex exclaimed, pointing toward a nearby park. Tom chuckled. The boy had a way of infusing ordinary moments with extraordinary joy. They arrived at the park, and it appeared almost transformed. The rain had washed the world clean, and vibrant green grass peeked out from behind the glistening drops clinging to leaves. Sunlight began filtering through the clouds, casting gentle rays that danced on the wet ground. Tom sat down on a park bench, visibly lighter. I've been thinking about what you said, about being a friend instead of pursuing that job. It feels like stepping off a ledge into freefall. Exactly, Alex exclaimed, his voice echoing enthusiasm. It's like a leap of faith. You'll be surprised at how things can unfold. Just like the sky will clear after a storm. Tom considered the boy's words. Could it really be that simple? A leap. He had taken leaps before chasing success, seeking approval. But this leap felt different. He ruminated on the lives they might touch, the souls they might inspire. Still, doubt gnawed at him. What if it turns out I can't help anyone? What if I'm not enough? He murmured, guilt creeping in, erasing the sparkle of inspiration for just a moment. Alex's voice softened, soothing. You are already enough. You don't know who you're meant to reach. Just being there makes a difference. Besides, you've got me. He grinned, and the sincere belief in his eyes pulled at Tom's heart. I don't want to fail you, Alex. The confession was raw, the vulnerability bared. You won T, the boy assured, seriousness clearing his playful demeanor. And if you do, we'll figure it out together. Promise? Tom nodded, feeling a swell of emotion rise in his chest. Yeah, promise. Just then, Tom's phone buzzed violently in his pocket. The notification jolted him out of the moment. He hesitated, pulling it out with a mix of fear and curiosity. The name flashing on the screen was that of his new boss. But it wasn't just a message, it was a call. Regret pinched at him. What would happen when he answered? Would he be stepping back into that life, leaving Alex behind? Tom, you okay? Alex's voice broke through the fog of uncertainty. Looking at the boy's eager face, the same face that painted his world in shades of possibility, Tom hesitated, his thumb hovering over the screen. He started, not entirely sure whether to lift the phone or set it down. The wind picked up a little, rustling the trees overhead, as if urging Tom into a decision. The air was heavy with unspoken promises and choices yet to be made. Tom took a deep breath, the weight of fate congealing in that air. Would he flee from this new chapter or step forward into the unknown? The phone vibrated again, louder this time, a clear signal that his moment of truth had arrived. As he lifted the phone to his ear, he felt every beat of his heart. In that moment, he understood everything hinged on this choice. And Alex, watching as the clouds shifted, built up the strength of that unleashed storm, felt the tremor of fate in the air. Tom pressed the phone against his ear, the voice on the other end crackling to life. Tom, his boss barked, clipped and impatient. I need you back in the office. We're in crisis mode here. The team's falling apart without your leadership. The urgency in his boss's tone quickened Tom's pulse. He wanted to engage, to regain his old momentum, but he was standing on the edge of a different path. He glanced at Alex, who was gazing up at the sky, blissfully unaware of the stakes at play. Can it wait? Tom asked, his own voice surprisingly steady despite the whirlwind in his chest. Wait. We need your input on the Larimore account. If we lose this contract, the words hung in the air, heavy with consequence. Tom could feel the lure of comfort and control, the familiar lure pulling him back into a world that had suffocated him. His heart clenched. Was this really the life he wanted to step back into? Tom? His boss's voice pulled him back to reality. This is important. Can I count on you or not? He took one last look at Alex, who was now dancing in the puddles, splashes flying like little moments of joy. Tom could hear the laughter echo in the stillness of the park, and something within him began to solidify. Actually, he finally said, his voice calmer and stronger. I'm not coming back. There was a shocked silence. Tom held his breath, a mix of fear and exhilaration coursing through him. What do you mean you're not coming back? You can't just leave us hanging. This isn't a joke? Tom, his boss snapped, disbelief tinged with anger. Maybe you don't understand, but I've got other priorities now, Tom insisted, feeling a rush of empowerment. I need to explore what I can really do, not just chase numbers and contracts. I'm choosing to help people. Do you realize what you're throwing away? I do, Tom replied firmly. But it's no longer my priority. With that, he ended the call, heart pounding in his chest like a wild drum. The sound of water splashing jolted him from his thoughts, and he watched as Alex turned. His face lit up with joy. The boy ran back to Tom, eyes bright. "Did you do it?" he exclaimed, breathless. "Yeah, I did," Tom said, a smile creeping onto his face despite the rush of emotions swirling inside. "See? I told you. Hope shines brighter when we take those leaps." Alex beamed, jumping up and down in excitement. A wave of relief washed over Tom. He felt lighter, as if a burden had been lifted. But as the clouds began to part, a nagging fear lingered. He hadn't just turned away from a job, he had turned away from what had defined him for so long. "So what's next?" he asked, pulling Alex close. Alex grinned, his eyes twinkling. "We find that hope. Together we can make a difference." They set off again, hand in hand, the damp air scented with possibility. The world around them felt alive, brimming with potential. Every step felt like a new beginning. But still, the question lingered, echoing in Tom's mind. Would they truly find a way to help others? As they walked further into the park, deeper into the blinking promise of transformation, a flicker caught Tom's eye. A group of homeless men huddled together nearby, their faces shadowed by the dimming light. Struggling with that familiar pull of doubt, Tom hesitated. Could he really lead this journey when he lacked the answers himself? Alex noticed the change in Tom's pace. "What is it?" he asked, sensing the tension. In that moment, with the shadows growing longer, Tom faced not just the hope of a new beginning, but the reality of the challenges ahead. As he stood there, a hesitant figure on the brink of a new chapter, everything lay in the balance. What if this moment held the key to his mission? Would it propel them forward, or would the weight of his fears drag them back? Tom took a deep breath, the damp air filling his lungs as he looked towards the group huddled together. Their faces told stories of hardship and struggle, and yet, amidst the shadows, there was a strong flicker of resilience. "What are we waiting for?" Alex tugged at Tom's arm, his voice bubbling with excitement. "Let us go talk to them." Tom hesitated. It felt like a plunge into unfamiliar waters, and he could hear the resounding echoes of his past life, warning him to play it safe. But he looked down at Alex, his small face filled with determination, and a warmth unfurled in his chest. "Okay," Tom finally said, and together they started walking towards the trio of men. As they got closer, he noticed the details: the frayed jackets, the weathered hands, the piercing eyes that held a mix of curiosity and caution. One of the men, older with a beard threaded with gray, glanced up from the group and offered a slight nod. "Hey there," Tom said, trying to keep his voice steady. "Mind if we join you?" The men shifted slightly, a mix of surprise and disbelief among them. It was a stark contrast to the busy world Tom had come from, where most would walk past without a second glance. "What's a fancy suit like you doing here?" the older man asked, a slight edge in his voice. Tom chuckled nervously, realizing how absurd his attire felt in this setting. I just quit my job," he admitted. "I want to find a way to help people, and I thought maybe you could help me understand more." "Help how?" a younger man interjected, crossing his arms. "You think you know our lives?" Tom glanced at Alex, who stood proudly at his side. "I don't, but I want to learn. I want to find ways to support people like you. My son here believes in hope. He told me that's how we start making changes." At the word hope, the men's expressions shifted slightly. The older man nodded slowly, and Tom saw a flicker of interest in his eyes. "You think you can help us? We've been doing our best just to survive day by day. I believe we can all help each other." Alex chimed in, his voice bright with innocence and conviction. The younger man broke into a grin, the tension lifting. "Little dude, you definitely have spirit. What do you have in mind?" Tom realized that sharing honest stories was the first step. "Maybe we can talk about what you need. Shelter? Support? Could be anything, really." The men exchanged glances, a tentative trust forming. They began sharing stories. Tom learned about their struggles and dreams, which were often tucked away beneath layers of hardship. Alex listened intently, occasionally asking questions that made the men laugh despite their circumstances. Time slipped away as they talked, the shadows deepening around them. Tom felt something shift within him. The connection blossoming there filled him with more purpose than any corporate deadline ever had. "See, the world doesn't look so dark with hope," Alex said, his small hand gripping Tom's tightly. But just as the warmth of their conversation settled in, a sudden rush of anxiety crashed over Tom. What if he wasn't equipped to help? What if their trusting faces masked deeper pain? Just then, the older man met Tom's gaze, eyes steady and searching. "Why do you care, really?" he asked. "What's a guy like you want with a bunch of drifters?" Tom's heart pounded louder than ever. He felt that familiar fear creep back in, the same one that had haunted him since he walked away from the office. Would he let it hold him back, or would he rise above it, ready to break down the very barriers that held him prisoner before? As the weight of the question hung between them, Tom realized he stood at a pivotal moment, a tipping point in his journey. "Because it's time to change," he said, his voice stronger than he felt. "And I'm ready to learn how to start." But could he truly transform not just his own life but the lives of those in front of him? The air grew charged with anticipation, and the future felt like it was hanging by a thread. What awaited on the other side of this leap? Tom's heart raced with the weight of the older man's question. Everyone's eyes were now locked on him, the air thick with unspoken thoughts. He could feel the tension rising. What would he say next? He searched for a spark of inspiration amidst the whirlwind of uncertainty. Maybe he started, his voice a whisper at first, "Maybe I see too much of my own struggles in yours." The younger man raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "You think you've got it all figured out with your suit and tie?" A silence fell. Tom could feel every heartbeat echo in his ears. He wasn't here to prove anything, but the simple, raw truth slipped out. "I've been lost. I've chased money and success, thinking that would fill me up. But now I just want to connect, to understand. Because chasing the wrong dreams only left me feeling emptier." The older man leaned forward, his curiosity piqued. "And you think we can teach you?" "Yes," Alex shouted suddenly, breaking the spell. His enthusiasm lit up the dim space around them. "You're the ones who really know what it means to hope when things get tough. You're the experts." Tom felt his son's innocence cutting through the tension. The men looked at each other, uncertainty giving way to a glimmer of something. Maybe it was hope, just like Alex had said. Tom pressed on, leaning into this moment. "Maybe there's a way we can change our stories together," he proposed, realizing he was starting to believe his own words. "What if we start by sharing the small victories and defeats? Just conversations? We learn from each other." Slowly, the older man nodded. "We're not looking for a handout. We want to be seen and heard," he said. "You could start by listening. That right there is a big step." Tom felt a rush of relief wash over him. Listening, he could do that. He glanced at Alex, who was beaming. Then he looked back at the men. "I'm in. I'll listen." A moment later, the younger man waved his hand dismissively. "Next thing you know, you'll be wearing our clothes and sleeping in the streets." The group erupted in laughter, the sound clearing the heaviness that had been hanging in the air. Tom chuckled, imagining himself in tattered clothes, but he realized something. It wasn't about the clothes or the stigma that surrounded it. It was about understanding the people beneath those layers. The evening grew darker as the stories began to flow, joyous moments shining amid the hardships. They spoke of lost dreams and flickering hopes, laughter mixed with sorrow. Alex sat in the circle, absorbed and giving his full attention. It felt like the walls that had held Tom back were crumbling away, piece by piece. Hours passed, and just like that, common ground was stitched into being. Each story shared forged trust, transforming strangers into allies. The men began to look at Tom less suspiciously and more like a friend. As one of them spoke of a dream to start a small business, Tom saw fire ignite in his eyes. It was a fire he suddenly wanted to fuel. But as the conversations deepened, another question drifted into Tom's mind, one that sent a shiver down his spine. What if this journey of understanding was only the beginning? As the group began to disperse, Tom felt a sense of unease. Would he be able to help? And even if he could, at what cost to his own comfort? "Do you think this is going to be easy?" he asked quietly, almost to himself. The older man turned to him, a knowing look in his eyes. "Nothing worth having ever is." The truth of the man's words hung in the air, and Tom sensed that it was only the start of a much larger story. With a last look around at the faces, he felt a pang of anticipation and dread. What challenges lay ahead that would truly test his resolve and commitment? Would he rise to the occasion, or would he falter at the brink of change? The answer felt impossibly close, yet out of reach, leaving Tom on the edge of his own unknown path. The following week felt like a whirlwind for Tom. Each evening, he returned to the community center, eager yet anxious. With every story shared, the bonds deepened, but so did the weight of understanding. He realized that these men weren't mere subjects of his exploration. They were warriors fighting under the banner of hope. Each conversation took him further into a territory he was both terrified and curious to explore. As Tom made his way to the center one Thursday evening, a palpable energy hung in the air. It was cooler than usual, the streets glistening from a light rain, reflecting the streetlights in shimmering patches. The moment he stepped inside, the warmth enveloped him, a stark contrast to the chill outside. Alex was already there, engrossed in a game of cards with some of the younger faces from the group. "Hey, Dad! Look!" Alex exclaimed, throwing his arms wide. "We've got an audience for the championships." Laughter bubbled up, and the older men gathered around as if witnessing a comedy show. "Are you going to go easy on them, Tom?" the older man teased. "Or do you want his head on a platter?" Tom feigned offense, raising his hands in mock protest. "I'll just watch. I don't want to be responsible for the heartbreak of losing." As the games continued, there was an unmistakable connection formed between Tom and the group, yet an inkling of doubt began to creep back into his heart. He wondered whether listening was enough. What if these stories he had been soaking up came with a responsibility? Would his life be forever changed? And how would that change affect Alex? When it was finally time to sit down and share stories, Tom cleared his throat. He felt gratitude swelling within him for the honesty surrounding him, the vulnerability they all carried like badges of honor. "Tonight," he began softly, "I'd like to share something I've been grappling with." As he delved into his own story, a tale of success stripped down to its fragile core, the audience listened intently. The words spilled out like an overdue confession. The cracks in his perfectly polished life became a testament to lessons learned, to dreams that had shifted under the weight of disillusionment. When he finished, silence swept through the room, and he felt exposed yet liberated. "Wow, Tom," the younger man said, breaking the spell. "You're telling me you've been dealing with this too? But you're, successful." Tom swallowed hard. "Success doesn't shield you from pain." The men murmured in agreement, their faces reflecting a mixture of understanding and compassion. It was a moment that bridged their worlds together, revealing that they shared the same tides of emotion, whether they wore suits or tattered clothes. "What's the takeaway, then?" The older man leaned forward, his eyes sharp. "What do you want us to do with that? How do we help you back?" A wave of emotion crashed over Tom. "By showing me I'm not alone," he whispered. The room felt heavier after that. Together, they wrestled with the depths of what that really meant. Tom's shoulders sank, and for the first time, he allowed himself to lean into the vulnerability of it all. But as the discussions wound late into the night, a surge of excitement began to surface. Ideas began bubbling up, collaborative projects, building something together. Yet, the question flared back to life. Was he truly ready to dive into this? His heart raced with the thought. As they wrapped up the evening, there was an electric energy in the air. Everyone hugged or waved goodnight, but one voice lingered. It was Alex, who had been quiet throughout the discussions. As the last of the men filed out, he turned to Tom, a spark of inspiration in his eyes. "Dad, what if we started a project together? Something big? A way to help?" What Alex proposed struck Tom like a bolt of lightning. It was the kindling of an idea that could change everything. But was he ready for that leap? His mind spun. The stakes were rising, and so was his heart rate. Could he take that leap and embrace the unknown alongside his own son? He looked at Alex, who was teetering on the edge of excitement. As they turned to leave the shelter, the pulse of possibilities thrummed in the air. What was next? Tom couldn't sleep that night. Every time he closed his eyes, Alex's words echoed in his mind, bouncing around like a pinball. Project? Together? The thought seemed immense and daunting, yet the flicker of excitement was undeniable. He knew he had to consider it seriously, not just brush it aside as the whim of an enthusiastic teenager. The next morning, Tom poured himself a cup of coffee and stared out the window. The world outside was awakening, the hustle and bustle of life continuing unabated. The thought of turning his energy to something meaningful, a project with Alex that could impact others, filled him with both dread and hope. Would he be able to balance this new endeavor with his regular life? His phone buzzed on the kitchen counter, breaking his reverie. It was a message from one of the men at the community center, asking if Tom and Alex would be joining the group for a weekend cleanup project at a local park. The park was a haven for many of the community's struggles, a place where stories began and sometimes ended, and now it had fallen into disarray. Without thinking much of it, Tom fired back a quick reply. Count us in. When he shared the news with Alex later that day, a contagious excitement lit up the boy's face. See, Dad? This is a start. We can talk to the guys about what else we could do. It's more than just cleaning. Tom nodded, feeling the weight lift slightly, all while acknowledging the fear still nesting deep within him. Right, but let us remember that just cleaning won't solve everything. I know, but it's a step, Alex insisted, unyielding in his optimism. The weekend dawned sunny and bright, perfect for a cleanup. Tom's heart raced as they drove to the park. He glanced at Alex, who was practically buzzing with energy. When they arrived, the scene was bustling. The smell of fresh grass mixed with determination filled the air. As Tom stepped out of the car, he spotted some familiar faces from the community center. They greeted him warmly, their smiles a balm to his nervousness. These were not just random strangers. They were the very men he had opened up to, and who had opened up to him in return. Hey Tom! Alex! One of the younger men shouted, raising a trash bag as if it were a trophy. Let's South make this place shine. As they grabbed their supplies, Tom felt the spark of something new igniting among them, a community within a community, and he started to believe in the power of collaboration. He caught Alex's eye, and there was a shared understanding that today was not just about cleaning. It was about joining forces, about creating something meaningful. In the midst of picking up litter and laughing over silly stories, Tom noticed an older man sitting off to the side, looking pensive. He was one of those who had approached Tom in past discussions, a gentle giant with a quiet demeanor. It struck Tom that maybe this man needed more than a cleanup. Maybe he needed someone to talk to. Hey, you all right? Tom asked, stepping closer. The man looked up, surprise flickering across his face. Yeah, just thinking about how far we've all come. Tom nodded, encouraged by the honesty. Can be hard to see the ground we've gained. There was silence for a moment, but not an uncomfortable one. Just an acknowledgement that they were both wrestling with their own hardships. Yet here they were, together. Inspired, Tom decided to share a thought that had been brewing. What if we could find more ways to keep this connection alive? Beyond just today? The man looked intrigued, leaning in a little. What do you mean? Something bigger? A program? A place where we can gather regularly to create together. Not just to talk, but to act. As the sun reached its peak, discussions began sparking everywhere around the park, creating a wave of energy that Tom hadn't anticipated. Ideas flourished, and suddenly the cleanup transformed into brainstorming sessions for community projects. Alex joined in with his youthful enthusiasm, bouncing from person to person, suggesting ideas about workshops, mentoring, and even art in the park. The momentum was palpable, and for the first time, Tom felt a sense of purpose settling in his bones. But just as the momentum peaked, an unexpected chill swept in. They were met with a problem no one saw coming: a lack of funding to sustain their ideas. The realities of finances loomed over the dream they had just started to build. Tom felt his heart sink. How could they keep this alive? In that moment, faced with dwindling hope, he locked eyes with Alex, who, despite the uncertainty, still sparkled with inspiration. Would they have to give up the vision they had just started to carve out? Or could the spark of this one day ignite a flame that would carry them through? As discussion shifted again, the determination in Tom's chest grew. He was ready to fight for it. He turned to Alex. Let us figure this out together. Maybe it's not just about what we can do, but who we can ask for help. Could they find a way to turn their vision into reality? What if this was just the beginning? Tom felt the weight of the world pressing down on him. The prospect of community service now tangled with daunting financial realities. As he looked at Alex, that familiar spark in his son's eyes, he realized this was just a bump in the road, not a dead end. Who can we ask for help? Alex echoed, his inquisitive spirit pushing through. Tom could see his son's mind racing, formulating possibilities, never truly allowing negativity to take root. What if we reach out to local businesses? Tom suggested slowly, testing the waters. Maybe some would be willing to sponsor our project in exchange for advertising or donations. Alex's face lit up. Yeah. We could create a plan and pitch it. I can make a poster and we can take it around. Tom nodded, heart swelling with pride. That sounds like a great start, buddy. Let us put together a list today after the cleanup. As they began rolling through ideas, the energy around the park shifted once more. The men from the community center grew more animated, conversations swelling into plans. They huddled, forming little brainstorming circles across the park, exploring anything they could do to sustain what had been ignited. Suddenly, Tom spotted the gentle giant again. Steve. Tom noticed the sparks of emotion in Steve's eyes, admiration cleverly hidden beneath his calm facade. Tom approached, sensing his connection to this man extended beyond mere words. Hey, Steve, Tom said softly, if you don't mind me asking, what are your thoughts on our vision? Steve paused, his brow furrowing in thought. I've been where a lot of these guys are. I was in the trenches for years. Helping others feel connected and find purpose is vital. But funding? Is always the same struggle. Tom nodded, the reality biting. Yeah, it's what makes or breaks initiatives like this. But what if we made it personal? Instead of just numbers, we could share stories. Show why this matters and how real lives are at stake. Steve studied Tom, his expression shifting from pensive to inspired. That's it. Personal stories hit harder, especially when you show the kind of impact this place could have on people's lives. This can turn into something meaningful. Tom could feel the spark reigniting. Exactly. We can be the voices for those who feel unheard. Maybe people will see the importance of community support when they hear real struggles. They exchanged a nod of understanding, a new determination forming between them. As they turned to rejoin the others, Tom's heart raced with renewed hope. Maybe they could change things, maybe they could gather the support needed. Alex bounced up beside them, a handful of scrunched paper, his face red from exertion but glowing with excitement. Dad, Steve, I just thought of a fundraising idea. What if we host a community day? Like a fair. Everyone can bring something: food, games, talent. We charge a small entrance fee to cover costs and promote awareness. Tom's breath caught. The idea was simple yet brilliant. That's it, Alex. A way to connect while raising money. We can set up booths, organize a raffle, and get local musicians involved. The more they discussed the community day, the more thrilled Tom felt. However, looming doubts still lingered. How do they spread the word? Could they get enough people involved? As the sun began to dip low on the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and orange, Tom glanced at Alex, whose enthusiasm seemed never-ending. You really think this could work? Alex beamed back. Absolutely. It's gonna be awesome, Dad. The day's momentum began to fade, but the spark ignited in Tom's heart continued to burn bright. If they could pull this off, it could be a game changer. As they packed up their supplies, Tom's phone buzzed with a new message, an unexpected jolt of excitement rushing through him. Hey, I just heard from someone who might be interested in contributing. It was a message from a foundation he had once spoken to about community initiatives. Could this be the break they were looking for? Tom's heart raced. What if this connection opened doors they never anticipated? But as thoughts of possibilities spiraled through his mind, one question rose above the rest: could they truly rally a community to not just act but believe in a future worth fighting for? The journey had just begun, and he was all in. How far could they take this vision before it slipped from their grasp? The day of the Community Day event finally arrived. Tom stood in the park early that morning, the sun peeking over the horizon, casting a golden hue over the preparations. Tents were set up, colorful banners hung fluttering in the light breeze, and there was laughter and chatter everywhere. It felt electric, a heartbeat of hope thrumming in the air, weaving through the crowd that was growing more lively by the minute. Tom searched for Alex and found him racing between volunteers, his joy contagious. The boy's spirit seemed to lift everyone around him. People from the community were actively engaging, some setting up food stalls, others arranging games like ring toss and a sack race that Alex had insisted on. "Look at all this, Tom." Steve beamed as he joined Tom, brandishing a clipboard with a list of activities. "This is huge. I can't believe how many people came out." "Yeah, it's amazing," Tom responded, a swell of pride pushing against his heart. "But do you think we'll actually raise enough?" Doubt crept in, echoed by the niggling fear that they were reaching too high. "Listen," Steve said, clapping Tom on the shoulder. "We'll get there. This isn't just an event. It's a movement. You're showing people what this community can do when it comes together, and that's the beginning." Tom nodded, reassured by Steve's commitment. He took a deep breath, reminding himself that the real wealth was already there, building connections, transforming lives. Each moment held promise. As the activities kicked off, laughter filled the air. Families gathered around the booths, smiles lighting their faces as they traded stories over plates of homemade food. Children bubbled over with excitement as they participated in games. Alex darted through it all, a whirl of energy, inviting others to join the fun. Tom watched with pride as a few of the men he'd met at the community center began sharing their own stories with attendees. The spirit of openness resonated, creating ripples of connection that transcended backgrounds and struggles. Soon it was time for Tom to share their vision. Rope in hand, he moved to the makeshift stage, heart pounding as he faced the crowd. This was a moment he'd prepared for, but standing there, vulnerability washed over him. He could feel 100 eyes on him, waiting. "Thank you all for being here today," he began, his voice steadying with each word. "What we're doing today isn't just about cleaning up this park. It's about cleaning up our communities, our connections to one another." He glanced at Alex, who stood beaming like a sunbeam, wearing a t-shirt that read "Hope is our wealth." Tom smiled at him, feeling that warmth push through the doubt. "I've learned through this journey that we all have stories. We all have struggles, but it's sharing these experiences that helps us lift one another up. Today we're here to connect, support, and grow. I invite all of you to join us in making this project something sustainable, to help forge connections long after this event." The crowd erupted in applause, and Tom felt alive. That sense of urgency he'd feared melted into a tidal wave of support. Children were cheering, families exchanging glances of hope, and there was an energy of fire igniting amongst the crowds. As the day rolled on, Tom found himself moving through the clusters of people, forging connections, learning about their lives, their dreams. He began to realize this was only the beginning. These conversations were building blocks for a change that was real and lasting. By the end of the day, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting brilliant colors against the sky, Tom looked around, overwhelmed by the best kind of chaos. People were packing up stalls, still talking, sharing laughter, and making plans to meet again. In that moment, a sense of gratitude washed over him like a warm embrace. Every challenge, every piece of doubt he'd wrestled with seemed to melt away. "Dad, did you see that?" Alex bounded over, voice bubbling with enthusiasm. "We actually brought everyone together. Everyone had fun. It was so cool." Tom pulled Alex into a hug and whispered, "You displayed true wealth today, buddy." "What do you mean?" He smiled down at him, feeling full in a way he hadn't felt in years. "You're rich in spirit. You reminded us all that connection is what truly counts, that a single act of kindness can ripple out, touching lives we may never know about." Just then, Steve approached, beaming with excitement. "We raised a good amount, enough to kickstart a few projects." He looked at Tom, conviction sparking again in his eyes. "And the best part? People are eager to volunteer." As the moon began to rise, painting the park in shades of silver, Tom felt a warmth in his heart he thought he'd lost forever. The storms around them might try to rage, but today, here in this moment, they had weathered a shift. Standing in the glow of the night, surrounded by familiar faces, he realized that true wealth wasn't measured in bank accounts or success, but in the connections forged through shared experiences, empathy, and unyielding hope. And just like that, the journey wasn't just about him anymore, it was all of them, together on this path of transformation. Before they left, Tom whispered softly to Alex, "Are you ready for what's next?" "Always." Alex grinned back, radiating the kind of confidence that couldn't be extinguished. Together, they stepped into the night, ready to carve out a future illuminated not by wealth, but by the strong ties of community and the enduring light of hope. Now, this is the moment to act. Subscribe immediately to this channel so you don't miss out on more exclusive stories that inspire change. Hit that like button now. Your support helps us reach more seekers of hope. Comment below with your thoughts on this heartfelt transformation. How do you feel about Tom and Alex's journey? And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to hear this message of connection and change. Let's spread the inspiration far and wide.